And I decided to take some time away because I was in New York City and I was with Cunningham Escatapini and for commercials and Paradigm for Legit.
Hold that 1 second. So I want to get back. I'm talking with Joe Rivera, an actor, trainer, a former boxer, all-around great guy. We're going to break it down. Don't go away. Hey guys, Pete Koch breaking it down with friend Joe Rivera. He's the guy that he checks all the boxes in my show and in my mind. And by the way, do not adjust your dial. That is Joe's actual shoulders. Crazy. Makes me want to get a little wider somehow. But Joe is a very, very talented martial artist. He's an amazing trainer and boxing coach. I've seen him working with clients for years and years.
Thank you.
Incredible. He also has an intense background in acting. He's a classically trained actor with some serious chops. He's been sort of like a lot of us actors in and out of that business for a long, long time.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for sitting down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
How you doing, folks?
Let's go back to the beginning, right? So you grew up in New York City.
Yeah.
And you felt compelled at an early age, because we've talked about this, to
Yeah, well, I grew up in, let's face it, not the best of neighborhoods. I grew up in East Harlem on 102nd Street in the Washington housing projects. Mostly, government subsidized, a lot of welfare recipients, a lot of black, a lot of Puerto Rican. And while I'm Puerto Rican, I didn't look stereotypically Puerto Rican. And they just thought I was a white kid who wandered in from Yorkville. So basically, I was an open target, free game. For people trying to mug me or bully me.
Some kids would come up and say, "Give me your." What size you
people
wearing?
will come up to me. People will come up to me and go, "Hey man, what size are those sneakers, man?" And it's size 8.5, and they're like, "Yeah, that's my size. Why don't you give them to me?" And I'm like, "Why don't you try and take them from me and see what happens?" And I tell you what, I either had a choice there to fight or run, but I never went home barefoot, which is good because my dad would have beat my ass.
But you started to learn formally, get introduced.
Yeah.
And quickly it escalated to the martial arts.
Yeah, my dad at that point, enough of those instances happened. My dad was finally like, "Listen, we gotta teach you how to defend yourself." I also had a bad temper, so they thought it'd kill two birds with one stone. Give me a way to sort of an outlet for my temper, and also give me discipline while learning how to defend myself. So I started boxing, and for a month, this place was pretty strict. They would make you do all the work on the bags, and then finally introduce you to the mitt works like 3 weeks into it. Super strict, no sparring, no contact allowed with any opponent at all until after a month. So the month came, that's all I was waiting for, so I could spar. And I get in the ring with a kid who was a little older than me, and I tell you what, I think maybe it might have been the first or second punch he threw. It wasn't even that powerful. I think it was a jab. I got hit with a jab in the nose, and I lost it. My temper went through the roof. I threw off my headgear, my gloves, and I just tackled this kid there to pull me off of him. At that point, I realized, you know what? All the Bruce Lee movies were coming out, and I thought, hey man, maybe if I start kicking and using my legs, I'd be less likely to get hit in the face because I can establish more of a distance between me and my opponent. And so that's what I started to do. Did that for the next 25 years. Man.
Martial arts, that was your thing, right?
Yeah,
it started
totally.
to really form the person you are, undoubtedly. I know that it wasn't, at a certain point, you started to think like, there's another side of Joe Rivera. There's a theatrical side. There's an artistic side. You want to tap into that.
That was really part of it as well, because it's not called martial art for nothing. There is a definite artistry involved. Every time you hit someone and they're actively trying to defend themselves, you just created something. You created an opening that didn't exist. That's creative. It's an art. There's an art to it.
And Bruce Lee discussed this in length, right?
Oh yeah.
He studied philosophy
He studied philosophy with Krishnamurti. After college, he really started getting into Krishnamurti. He was an avid reader, so he found his books, and Krishnamurti had books titled things like "Think on These Things" or "Be Your Own Light." And obviously, being your own light was what he was all about. about. He didn't want to follow others. He wanted to follow his own path. And so those books and his friendship with Krishnamurti sort of really helped him to solidify that.
So you were impressed by early on by Bruce Lee, that not only the things he was doing physically, right, but the things he was thinking about.
Yeah,
writing about.
Always thinking about, and always like thinking what's coming next. He was always looking ahead. Basically, I started with those after the 10 years or so to get my black belt in martial arts. I started exploring other different venues and other different avenues to express myself in the combative arts, and it all wound up breaking down to exactly what Bruce Lee said. It was the theory of ranges. I mean, it was never rocket science. It was always
theory of ranges.
The theory of ranges. So punching range, if you're about 3 to 4 or 5 feet away from someone, if you can get them with your hands, the person who has the better striking techniques with hands, they're going to have the advantage. Kicking range, if you're a little further away, 6 feet or a little more, whoever can throw better kicks has the advantage. And then grappling range, if you are, a foot and a half or 2 feet away from someone where you can actually grab them or tackle them down, whoever has more knowledge of that type of art or that type of combat is going to have the advantage. So you have to know a little bit about all three.
So this puts you really going back, we're talking about the 80s now, right? Sort of on the leading edge
70s and 80s, man.
Martial arts.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of street fights, and I found that if I threw kicks and stuff, while I did achieve my goal of keeping people off me from hitting me in the face, invariably somebody would figure out a way to tackle me down to the ground. So I had to find a way to deal with all that stuff too. So yeah, Harlem was fun.
Okay, so I want to talk about the transition from sort of a metaphorical, mentor in Bruce Lee to somebody that became something of I don't know, maybe mentor is too strong a word, but someone that was formative in your years a bit later acting, and that's David Mamet.
Yeah, I was working in New York. I wound up. After college, I ran a building supply company on 29th Street in Manhattan and 3rd Avenue. And 2 actors lived across. I had always wanted to be an actor, but coming from the projects and, growing up poor, the smart bet was go to college and, get a job or run a company or do something like that. The thought of what actors go through with auditions and all that other stuff and being unemployed and risking it all for art is not something that was really on my mind or I thought I could do until I met those guys, Grant Show and Richard Grieco, and hung out with them, became good friends.
The original 80s pretty
well, yeah, he wound up doing 21 Jump Street and then going on to have his own show, Booker or something, for a while.
Yeah.
But which is hilarious. But I thought to myself, if these guys could do it, maybe it's worth a shot. And I found myself also realizing, hey man, once this summer's over, I'm not going back to college. I'm going to be working at this place doing 60 hours a week for the rest of my life if I don't try something now. So I got a job running a nightclub, and so I could have my days free and work nights and make money, and I left the building supply company. I had actually sold a bunch of lumber to one of the guys who was building a nightclub in Manhattan. So he gave me the job. He gave me the job as head of security and closing manager. And that's from there on in.
It freed your days up.
Freed my days up. Started going on auditions, trying to get agents. Finally got a decent agent. Not great. Finally booked a national Old Spice spot that played during the Super Bowl. And I took my shot from that and sent it to all the major agencies who wouldn't even talk to me at all for before that, and suddenly they're all returning my calls and setting up appointments, and I signed with Cunningham.
Now you did the things, I know this part of the story, a little bit out of sequence, because you really didn't begin training until you already achieved some level of success.
Yeah,
commercials.
Yeah, mostly commercials.
But then you felt like you needed to get serious. You wanted to.
Well, yeah, because it felt like it wasn't. My whole thing of wanting to do it in the first place from 4 years old was I didn't realize what I knew it was more than just, hey, I want to be famous, or hey, I want to be in the limelight or whatever, or I want to make a lot of money. I knew it was more like, hey, man. Telling stories is like a way of, getting into people's psyche and sort of figuring out a way of maybe shifting their morality even at some point.
Joe, this is really important. I speak about this, and sometimes people say, to give it a context to what actors do, is actors are storytellers.
Yeah.
They are.
That's it.
It doesn't always feel like that, you can be watching, Dwayne Johnson do some incredible action stuff, but he's moving that story along. But the serious stories and all that in the theater, and David Mamet and this very, very important stuff. Wow, these are beautifully at its highest level. These are beautiful storytellers.
Yeah, and they're a means of being sort of it sounds like you're taking it too seriously if you put it in this vein, but it really can be a means of being like a moral compass for society. If the play is about an issue where there's a moral challenge or dilemma, and someone has to choose between the easy way, doing something illegal or bad or immoral, or the hard way and sticking to their grounds and then paying the price for it. A story like that can to the viewer can really put a shift in their head depending on what's going on in their lives.
And Joe, let me jump in, because here's the part where and I know you've made another hit that switch again in your life, and now you're an amazing personal trainer. I've been around Joe, and I work out at the same gym. I've seen him work with folks, and amazing. He's got the background in the martial arts and the boxing, and he holds the punch mitts up, and he gets these folks working. And we discuss, and I feel the same way. You discuss about how sometimes you have an opportunity with a client to help them grow, not just muscles, but emotionally and transformatively.
Yeah, I mean, when you go in and I trained Randy Wolf for his comeback in the major leagues after Tommy John surgery at 38. We added 5 miles to his fastball. We got abs on this guy, got him down to single-digit body fat that he never had in his whole life, and that's all well and good. He got to play again at 38, got picked up, was a starter again. That's awesome, but as cool as that is, it's even more cool to have someone who's struggling, let's say, with substances. And they're a machine, and everybody around them could care less as long as they keep performing and keep doing their job, because they get paid as long as the machine keeps going. And then to come along and through exercise and meditation and breathing and movement, have them shift, have their chemistry shift, have their hormones shift, their health shift, till suddenly they don't need the 27 pills a day anymore. They only have to take 2, for example. Something like that turns me on way more. Being able to help someone like that is just way cooler in that way.
You've got a lot to say. It's an amazing guy. How do folks get a hold of Joe Rivera?
Well, I have a studio on Olympic, 11th and Olympic here in Santa Monica, and FocusCenterFitness.com, and it's Focus Center Fitness across the board for Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and then YouTube as well. And the number is 310-499-4950.
There you go. I'll put that information up here underneath. You'll be able to see that. Go check out Joe Rivera. If you like this interview, give us a thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel. Do that. Find Joe at Focus Center Fitness. Joe, thanks for your time.
Oh man, thank you.
Thank you. Pete Koch, Breaking It Down. I'll see you next time.